Unscented and fragrance-free are not the same thing, which is absolutely infuriating. But
Mhm.
you need to look for fragrance-free on the label, not unscented, because unscented means it had a scent and it probably smelled pretty bad because of the whatever chemicals are in there.
Right.
And so then they had to add some sort of fragrance situation to make it so it doesn't smell like anything, which is different than fragrance free, which means it naturally doesn't smell like anything. Hello and welcome back to The Wellbeing. My name is Madison,
My name is Rachel,
and
and
we
we are
today we're
excited.
really excited to talk to you about fragrances, which is literally in everything.
Yeah, and we've brushed on this topic. We've like brushed on it, I think, in other podcasts, and then been like, no,
Mhm.
no, no, we have to save that for an entire episode because it's a lot.
It's a lot,
Yeah, it
like a
is.
lot.
It is.
So,
One thing that I was going to tell you that I was waiting
yes.
until
Hmm.
this moment is I went to Seattle last week to visit my
Yes.
sister. Her and her husband just had their first baby, and so
So
I'm
cute.
a auntie now, and I got to meet him. He's adorable. He's so sweet, and they're doing
Love.
fantastic. Mom and baby are both healthy. Everything is great. I wanted to share. I was obviously texting you throughout this trip, but I had a headache like the entire time that I was there, or like at least through the airport and on the airplane. And I was just picking up so many different smells and fragrances. And you're in such close quarters with people. And it's just like I can smell her deodorant, I can smell his cologne, I can smell that perfume, I can smell all these things that were just giving me the worst headache ever. And I,
Someone in my family's friend's new girlfriend, basically. And
okay.
she came and she sprayed perfume on before we had Thanksgiving dinner. And it is still in my mom's office and we can't get it out. Like my mom's gonna have to get her office repainted.
No.
Yes. And every
She's that's where
time,
she slept. Is that what you said?
yeah,
That's where
there's
she
like a Murphy bed in my mom's office. So we pulled down the Murphy bed and
Oh,
removed the desk. And yeah, it literally every time I go in there, like my eyes start watering. I have an immediate headache. It's horrible. And my mom is even honestly even more sensitive than I am to scents.
is that why you're in a different room today? Because isn't that the
No,
one you've
I'm
been
at
in
a
there
different
before?
house. I'm in a different
Oh,
house today.
okay,
But
okay.
yeah, I have been in that before. Like the whole time I'm like, ugh, like I feel awful the whole time.
I don't think I'm a sensitive person when it comes to that, but as soon as we cut it
Hmm.
all out, then now I definitely notice it. And
Totally.
yeah, it's difficult to be around.
It's really hard to be around.
Also,
And
like, how do you tell somebody?
so my mom had to tell this other girl who came. So we just had so many people over. This girl who came for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, my God, this is so many things have happened since I talked to you last. My husband's friends all came over, and my mom was like, "Can you please text them and make sure no one brings perfume?" And I was like, "Yes, but you have to text this other girl who's coming for Christmas and tell her not to bring perfume." My mom's like, "Okay, deal." So I text all of Dee's friends and my friends who are coming over, and I'm like, "Hey, we're really sensitive. We're like trying to detox the house right now because it still smells from Thanksgiving. Like, please don't bring anything that smells." And everyone was like, "Okay, great, fine, no problem."
Yeah.
Very reasonable. But then my mom forgot to text this other person. And so she had to tell her in person, like, hey, your perfume's giving me a headache, basically. I think she said something really nice, not like you are giving me a headache. Like, hey, just so you know, I'm really sensitive to your perfume. It gives me a headache in the future if you could just not wear it. And she was like, I am so sorry. Like she felt really horrible.
Yeah.
Which of course you do. Like no one's gonna be like, oh, that's a you problem unless you're a really bad person. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think it is awkward to say and talk about
Hmm.
for sure.
I think so too. But I also think that most people don't know that fragrances are as bad as they are.
Yeah, I think not. I also like immediate um symptoms with like someone walked in with Tide and I gave him a hug and I'm like, ooh, hate that.
I was on a walk yesterday. You're gonna laugh. I thought of you
Someone's
on my walk.
did you hear someone's or smell someone's dryer?
Yeah. Like from
Oh,
outside on
yes.
the tr like we have this huge or this like middle school track behind our house. I
Hmm.
think we walked back there when
Hmm.
you were
Yeah.
here, but I was walking past on that track and I could smell somebody's dryer from there. I was like, that is
Oh,
crazy. But
it's
also
wild.
normal. It is
Mhm.
very
It's
socially
normal.
acceptable for your laundry to smell really good,
Hmm.
clean, and for
Hmm.
you to smell good, for your house to smell
Hmm.
good, like to bombard your system with scents that smell
Hmm.
good.
Yes.
That I feel like is more normal than not
Ugh.
smelling anything at all.
Yeah, but we have to remember that clean smells like nothing. It's supposed to
Correct.
smell like nothing.
Yes.
It's supposed to
Which,
smell like nothing. And that's a hard thing to do, especially when like buying things at Target is so convenient or the grocery store or whatever. I have not bought a cleaning supply from the grocery store in years.
yeah.
And it's kind of difficult, but I just have to have it on subscription and not think about it. And then I just don't go to that aisle because even going into the trash bag aisle, where there's
Mhm.
also other scented things, like scented trash bags, for example, which please do not use scented trash bags, scented tampons, scented pads, like whatever.
Diapers.
Diapers. Oh my God, definitely not those.
Yeah.
Um, I can't even go in
Poop
that
bags.
aisle.
Poop bags.
Oh,
We used to buy a
gross.
scented poop bag for our dogs, everybody. And I still
No.
like smell that mixture and I'm like, ugh, it
Ugh.
smells so bad.
It
It's
smells so bad. The scented trash bags are not helping,
just
guys.
unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah. Which leads me to the next thing about scent, which is that unscented and fragrance free are not the same thing, which is absolutely infuriating. But
Hmm.
you need to look for fragrance free on the label, not unscented, because unscented means it had a scent and it probably smelled pretty bad because of the whatever chemicals are in there.
Right.
And so then they had to add some sort of fragrance situation to make it so it doesn't smell like anything, which is different than fragrance free, which means it naturally doesn't smell like anything.
And nothing was added in the first place to cover up.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a really terrifying thing, honestly.
So fragrance free.
Fragrance free, that's what you're looking for on all labels, just kind of across the board. And in your anything from your face wash to your trash bags, which is so crazy that you have to look for it on
Hmm.
everything. And
Hmm.
other places that you're going to find fragrance where you're like, oh, I might not think about it. I mean, this one, you definitely think about it, but those like Air Glade or Airwick or other plugins that you plug into the
Hmm.
wall,
Hmm.
those are really harmful.
Yeah.
Perfume itself, essential oils can be okay. But I made a joke on our Instagram the other day that like if you had Dream Angel Victoria's Secret
Hmm.
perfume, someone got me that for my birthday once, and it was just in my room through high school, but I never once sprayed it because I don't like to smell like anything. So like all of these things, your deodorant,
Hmm.
sometimes
Yeah.
it can be in your lotion. Well, it's often in lotion,
Yeah.
like the smell of like coconut or whatever in your
Hmm.
lotion. That is usually synthetic. Any
Even
synthetic
candles.
fragrance. Oh my God, the candles.
Candles are big ones because you do have to check and make sure it's like
Hmm.
100% pure essential oil that is the scent
Yep.
that is being added, right?
Hmm.
And
100%.
sometimes it will say like essential oils, but it's not
Hmm.
100%, or like there's other synthetic things that are added. So you
Hmm.
do have to be that nerd that pulls out your reading glasses and read the actual label and
Hmm.
make sure.
And that is because the way that they get fragrance to stick around, like, for example, my mom, after all those people came to our house, she sent all the sheets out to the wash and fold for fragrance free. Because she's like, I
Mhm.
cannot do 100 loads of laundry. I'm just not doing it. So she brought it all to the wash and fold place. And she always says fragrance free, free and clear, whatever detergent, which we know isn't the greatest, but it's better than fragranced. So, they came back smelling like stuff and I couldn't sleep that night. I was laying there like, oh my God, because I literally am so intolerant at
Mhm.
this point. And so the next day I went down and changed the sheets. My mom was like, are your sheets okay? And I told her no, because they smell like Tide. And she told me that she asked for free and clear, but clearly there was a mistake or whatever. So we
Mhm.
went and washed all of them again and they still smell. And that
Mhm.
is because phthalates are used in
Mhm.
order to enhance the performance of the scent. So not only fragrance not only contains the smell as a chemical, but also the performance of the smell. How long will it last? How long will it stick to you? And that's why you see those commercials on TV for Gain or whatever that say scent lasts through the next wash, or scent continues after 5 washings, or whatever the commercial
Hmm.
says,
Hmm.
um, because of that. And so diethyl phthalate, or DEP, is a widely used cosmetic fragrance that makes scents linger. And phthalates are choice ingredients in cosmetics because they are cheap and versatile. However, they are an endocrine disruptor, and therefore evidence shows that they will interfere with hormone function, which is not great, and has been linked to reduced sperm count in men, earlier puberty in girls, and reproductive defects in the developing male fetus while mother is exposed during pregnancy.
That's terrifying.
They also associated with obesity and insulin resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And there is new evidence suggesting that phthalates may cause liver and kidney failure in young children when products containing phthalates are sucked on or chewed for extended periods. That is crazy.
Yeah, that is insane. One other thing, we talked about this in our plastics podcast too, but this is an ingredient that's used to make plastics.
Yes,
So,
it's a plasticizer.
yes, so found in packaging, tubing, automated parts, cosmetics, obviously you just talked about, but it's in so many different things. And it's added to things like cosmetics, like things that we're putting on our skin and close to us in order to appeal to us more, but not to make the
Mm-hmm.
product better
Mm-hmm.
necessarily.
100%. So you can buy pretty much every single product in the world without phthalates in it, besides plastic. I mean, plastics are always going to have phthalates, but
Yeah.
I think it's really important to understand that, because it is toxic to you, to the environment, to animals, to all of the things. And they are not going to ever list all of the chemicals that are in the product, because technically it's the same as natural flavors, which we will go into another time, where if you see natural flavors on a label, or if you see fragrance or parfum on a label, it just means, hey, we don't want to tell you what's in it because it's a quote unquote trade secret.
Mhm.
And therefore, we don't actually have to tell you what it is, which is so crazy.
It is so crazy. And they don't have to tell us that it's bad either.
Exactly. But more and more research is coming out showing that it's bad. And so we need to pay more attention to that. Some of the biggest offenders, I guess you could say, in this, there are over 3,000. Some studies show over 4,000 chemicals that are allowed to go under the word fragrance. It's, again, both the fragrance chemicals themselves and the performance chemical, but they can be in there. So there are either over 3,000 or over 4,000, again, depending on the resource that you read. But it is possible usually that the synthesis of these will leave trace amounts of ethylene oxide and 1,4-dioxane and unreacted C9 phenols, which are all toxic. Some of which, some of the bigger ones are octozenols and non-octozenols, and those are highly problematic as well. And those are something that I was trying to read about. There are tons of different ones. So an octozenol, which is octoxynol, there is like 9, 8, 25, 22. Like there's all these different numbers after them. They are almost all related to cancers, immunotoxicity,
Mhm.
allergies, and more.
Skin irritation, also
Yeah.
damage to the environment. But I think, like you
Mm.
were saying, so the octozinols and the non-oxyzinols will provide spelling somewhere or emulsifiers so that they help dissolve substances that aren't easily mixable. So that is like so it improves the effectiveness of the product when you're putting it in your skin or on your hands and things like that.
Totally. So think about like oil and water, right? When you're mixing those together, unless you have some sort of solvent or solvent, um, that will help mix them together, it's really difficult to mix them. Another thing to think of is like protein powder. Some of them mix really well into water while others don't. And this is because the ones that mix really well into liquid tend to have soy lectin in it, which is an emulsifier, but a food grade emulsifier. Some people say it's really bad for you. Some people say it doesn't matter. I'm going to go with trying to avoid it because you know me.
Yeah,
But when we're thinking about this, you obviously, or not obviously, but clearly do need the same thing for cosmetic products as well,
right.
which is
Um,
scary.
Other things that are in fragrances are the VOCs, which I know we talked about this in our
Yes.
plastic episode as well. But basically, these can be in synthetic fragrances, they can be in cleaning agents, which we're going to go more into specific cleaning products in our next podcast. So
Hmm.
stay tuned for that one. It's just a big thing to cover in all
It
in
really
one.
is.
So, but also present in adhesives, perfumes, paints, and other solvents. An example is a formaldehyde, commonly used in household products due to its wide range of applications as a preservative, disinfectant, production aid for the creation of plastics, textiles, etc.
Mhm.
But this is one, again, something that is part of synthetic fragrances that causes headaches. Cue the airplane for me. Dizziness, cue Maddie's entire career and knowledge. Yeah, difficulty concentrating, irritation of the eyes, nose, and throat. And then long-term exposures, as we've talked about many, many times, um,
Hmm.
suggested to increase the risk of cancers such as lung cancer, even.
It's just not great. So rather than using fragrances, if you are a person who is like, I must smell like something,
Hmm.
there are ways to do this that are not so toxic. And the best way to go about that is to use pure essential oils. And you have to find a company that you trust because some of them have other additives in it, kind of like we were talking about before with the candles and things.
Hmm.
So it's definitely not a perfect situation,
Hmm.
but it can, it's better than other things, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah. What were you gonna
And
say?
oh, I was just going to say, just like to touch on that a little bit more, these are all the ingredients, or these are all of the harsh chemical parts of synthetic fragrances that you can find. And even if you
Hmm.
find, like, say you're at the store in the cosmetic aisle and you find like a makeup product that you want to buy, but
Hmm.
it says like parabens free or phthalate free,
Hmm.
but still has a fragrance of some sort in it, it could still have some of these harsh chemicals. You just never
Hmm.
know what blend of chemicals you're getting. Um, because the FDA doesn't require them to put that on there. Kind of like Maddie was saying, it's like a
Yeah.
trade secret. So it's best rule of thumb, like even if it says phthalate free, paraben free, and obviously this is everyone's singular choice, but rule of thumb is to just avoid it altogether
Hmm.
because none of these things are being added.
Yeah. If you really want to know, you are allowed to email the people at the brand or whatever and say
Yeah.
like, what is in this? Like, I want to know for my own safety what this
Right.
is.
Hmm.
You're definitely allowed to do that, and I think that you should if you want to.
Hmm.
I talk about this a lot. My hairdresser gives me this special shampoo because my hair is so bleached, if you don't know. Clearly it's not right now, but generally it is. But so I need to use like special shampoo typically. And so in that case, I want him to like tell me what's in there. And it's not supposed to smell like anything from this specific brand because he uses like all sulfate free, phthalate free, whatever. But it does say fragrance on the back. And I was like, what is this? So he asked. And in the fragrance, it's all directly derived from white tea leaves, which is a natural fragrance, which is kind
Hmm.
of a comparable to an essential oil. It's directly from that. It's not an unnatural thing, but they do want to be able to hide behind this is our trade secret or whatever. So
Hmm.
that's just something to consider
Hmm. Yeah, that's a
as
really good
well.
point. And it feels like it takes a lot of time, and which it totally
Hmm.
does. But also, if it's something that you're showering with or using every day, definitely worth it. Because there's a lot of products out there that
Hmm.
claim to be like organic, or maybe they say organic, or they say like no phthalates, or they say a part of a piece of the puzzle that you like, and then that gets you to buy it, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's not 100% non-toxic or clean,
Mm-hmm.
which is genius. Like props to
Mm-hmm.
them. Rude.
100%. So rude. It's honestly really annoying.
It's rude. And
It
it's like,
is.
it's rude that we can even buy these things
I know.
legally, like that you can just go buy
It's
something.
not like on the black market.
I know some of the certifications that I found that you can look for on products are, like Maddie said, EWG verified, which we've talked
Mm-hmm.
about that plenty of times on here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we both use before buying a new product.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we use when looking up an old product that we have, which is not as
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Not
Um,
as fun at all. And I found a new thing, which maybe you guys already knew about on the EWG, but if you look something up and you don't find it, it will say showing X number of products for whatever you searched for. And then it says see the brand. And then underneath that, it says don't see your product. And then it says build your own report. It doesn't underline it, but it is a hyperlink. You can click build your own report and then find anything you want and input it in there, and it will give you a number.
that's cool.
It's really cool. So
That
I've been
website
doing
is
that with a
magic
lot of stuff.
and
Hmm.
completely free.
Totally free. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you don't even have to pay for that.
Which is
Um,
so great.
Other certifications I found is one is called Leaping Bunny, which is basically cruelty free. So
Mm.
we like that too, definitely. Um,
Hmm.
Cosmos, USDA organic, made safe, and nat true. Nat true.
Oh,
So those
hmm.
are good things to look for
Okay.
when when looking up a fragrance and if it's actually non-toxic or not.
Cool. And then another thing to note, if you are going to be using essential oils, if you must smell like something, I really recommend putting it in a carrier oil. And I am by no means an essential oil expert, but from what I understand, you should put it in something else like jojoba oil or something. You'll make it last longer, which is great because that stuff's expensive, but also because it can give you some sort of rash, like contact rash situation, if it is just directly put on your skin, especially if you're sensitive. And so if you want to just make it last longer anyway, which who doesn't want that? Put it in some sort of carrier oil, whatever works for you.
I like that. That's a really good idea. We
Yeah.
like that.
Yes. If
Do
you
you
are, what?
you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if you're gonna go through your house and start looking for fragrances, honestly, I think that you will be sadly surprised how many things have fragrance in it. I talk about this a lot when I told my best friend, like, hey, you got to get rid of X, Y, and Z. She was like, no way. And then the next day, she was like, I feel like I'm taking a shower in a chemical soup. And I will never not think of that because, yes, like every single thing in her shower was stuff that normal people buy from normal stores.
Mhm.
And I was like, here's how you can figure out what to buy next. And I just sent her the EWG, but everything that smells really nice in the shower is likely problematic.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
What were you going to say?
I was gonna say we might want to talk about like hormones and
Mhm.
exactly what that is, slash what endocrine disruptors do
Yeah.
and like why it's a problem. But I think most people, almost everybody has heard of hormones, right?
Hmm.
So the hormones are included in your endocrine system. So your endocrine system includes different glands in your body, including your pituitary gland, your ovaries, your testes, and your thyroid. I think
Hmm.
everybody has heard of thyroid and thyroid
Hmm.
problems. But they secrete things called hormones that enter your circulatory system, and then they bind into other parts of your bodily, signaling your organs and tissues what to do and when to do it. So these are
Hmm.
things that help with growth and development, your blood sugar control, your metabolism, and like your energy throughout the day, blood pressure, reproductive processes, appetite and weight control, digestion, sleep
Hmm.
cycles, and mood. So literally everything you do all day, every day. This is what hormones have to do with your body. And I think a lot of people think of hormones as mood, but they don't realize that they do all of these other things as well. Mood, maybe in reproductive
Yeah,
processes,
I
but
think so.
they have such a huge
Mhm.
effect on everything in your body. So that is the issue of them being disrupted, which usually through synthetic fragrances, they either mimic a hormone, in which case you're getting a signal that you shouldn't be getting, or they like cause a stoppage and don't allow a hormone to express as it should. So that is
100%.
kind of like the huge problem with that. And if, like Maddie said, if you are unknowingly bathing yourself in a chemical soup all day from like your candle and your makeup and your shower, if you are somebody that showers every day, I am not, but if you are, your shampoo and soap and I don't know, yeah, your Glade plug-in and your perfume and your husband's deodorant and perfume and or whatever. There's just so many
Yeah.
culprits that then are like, oh, I'm only wearing perfume, like that's not bad. I'm only, everything in moderation. But the point is that it's in so many things that it's unknowingly excessive and not in
Yes.
moderation.
They say that women use up to or more, like on average, 126 chemicals on their body every day.
That's so crazy. And
It's
I
so crazy.
honestly, like, even being intentional about cutting things out, I would both are too, because I bet it's
Hmm.
still kind of staggering.
Yeah, I am trying to, I have a really hard time with the skincare part of this for me
Yeah.
personally because it just doesn't work as well. It just
Hmm.
doesn't.
Hmm.
And I've been like changing out my retinol for other things and it just doesn't work as well. And you will
Hmm.
be the first to know when I find something that works as well. But it is frustrating because you want to be as healthy as you can be and get rid of as many chemicals as you can. But also, the chemicals exist because they work.
Right.
And that's a really frustrating thing.
It totally
So,
is. Yeah, it is.
mhm.
It is. And then also like just, I mean, should I even touch on this? But standard of beauty has changed so much in even 10, 20 years. Like you watch a
Absolutely.
movie from the early 2000s and like how famous actors and actresses look in a movie from then of like that was the standard of beauty compared to now. Like everybody is juicy and plump and like wrinkle free and looking very just LA, maybe, I guess I could say. But yeah,
Yeah,
just way different in the fact that like you feel like you need or want some of these products too to like fit in with what is normal or what can be
totally.
normal now. Yeah.
Totally. And I will be the first to admit that I freaking love Botox. I love retinol. I love it all. I'm a big fan. I don't have either of those things on my face right now or for the past like 6 months. And if you know me, like literally all I do all day is stare at myself on Instagram because that is my full-time job.
Hmm.
Is Instagram, which is, oh, I mean, part of my full-time job, I should
Hmm.
say. I'm not fully an influencer or anything, but it's a big part of my job. And so you can get really critical when literally all you do all day is stare
Hmm.
at your own face on Zoom
Yeah.
or on Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and I do notice like when I have had Botox 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever, I look at those pictures of myself and I do look different.
Hmm.
And it's always going to be different, but is
Hmm.
different better is the question you
Right.
need to ask yourself. And I think I look nice both ways, but I do prefer that because it like lifts your eyebrows a little bit. And I have no eyebrows if you can't, I'm not wearing makeup today. So, um,
If you
yeah,
guys are not watching on YouTube, just so everybody knows, Maddie is a perfect specimen and her skin is
you're so
beautiful
sweet.
and she does
Thank you.
not need Botox, but I totally understand.
I don't need it. That's an
We
excellent
need
point.
it.
I don't need it. I just like it.
But that's totally fine too. Like I think if you like it and that makes I totally get it. I haven't not gotten Botox yet, but I will. I
I
definitely will. I
probably
just haven't
won't do it
yet.
again until after I have at least two kids.
Mm,
That is my guess of what's going to happen.
yeah.
Because you can't get it while you are pregnant, which I am currently not, but you also can't get it like you shouldn't get it up to 6 months before. And so
Hmm.
I just haven't gotten it in a while. I'm just like, yeah, screw it until.
Hmm.
You also shouldn't use retinol while you're pregnant, so I just haven't been
Hmm.
using that prior
Yeah.
either.
Just cut it out now.
So
Yeah.
yeah, just cut it out now because it's
Mhm.
expensive. So what's the point?
Save it. Save it up. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But also
So
to each
yeah,
for those
totally,
things because I
100%.
totally get that.
Things that will help with your skin. This is so off the topic of fragrances, but things that will help your skin generally are actually strength training.
Ooh, I love
Fun
it.
fact, it makes
Tell
your
us
skin
more.
like tighter to your muscle, but it also just improves the health of your skin overall if you strength train.
So
So
forget the
if
coffee
you
scrubs.
are like, I just want to be, I don't want to strength train, but I need like a vain reason for my face to strength train, then it's because it makes your skin better on your face.
Interesting. It's probably because you smile more because you're happier. Just kidding.
Something like
That
that.
is not research backed up. Just joking.
Um, one more thing that I wanted to mention that's a chemical
Yes.
that's really, really common is called triclosan.
Hmm.
And it is technically an antibacterial or an antifungal agent. You can find it in, it's a help with consumer products with soap, detergent, deodorant, lotions, creams, toothpaste, mouthwash, and dishwashing liquids. Can also be found in cutting boards, clothing, and plastics, and go into furniture and toys. It's used in hospitals to help keep surfaces germ-free. You can find it in baby wipes. It is
Mm,
everywhere. It can cross the placenta and enter into breast milk. And some studies suggest that long-term exposure to triclosan, it's literally in Crest, guys. Like it's in everything. Um, it may increase the risk of certain cancers, and it is
mm,
also may uh, make certain bacteria resistant to antibiotics, which is not great. And it's
mm,
also likely an endocrine disruptor. So look
mm,
on the back because that is something that it will say.
mm.
Um, it's in most toothpaste. Like
Ugh.
I use the brand Hello. You can buy it at Whole
Whole
Foods or
Foods?
Amazon.
Whole Foods,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it doesn't have triclosan in it, but does have fluoride. So it just depends on where you stand on the fluoride argument, which I am still out on the argument, not whether or not to use it. I can't make a decision.
Same. That's
Yeah,
a decision for a different day.
correct.
I just
Anyway,
want to highlight one thing that you just said about, so if you are a mom or a soon-to-be mom or whatever you are on your journey like that, one thing to remember is that that we are especially susceptible and vulnerable to these hormone dysregulations when we have a baby in utero, or even like children that are in their childhood years are more susceptible than we are. So like small things like this are going to affect them more than they'll affect us as adults. So don't forget about kids' cosmetics like sunscreen, lotions, like bath bombs and glitter, like fun stuff that you can get, but there's also alternatives that you can do that are just as fun and just a little bit more non-toxic. And yeah, it's just, things that might be causing like that headache or dizziness or just like mood dysregulation in your kid. And you're like, what's wrong with them? Like, we just had so much fun in the bath and like bath time and doing all these things. So just something else to consider, that babies are not little adults. Obviously, they are different and their immune systems and their hormones are different. So just making sure to take that into account as well.
totally. When Dee's friends were in town, one of the girls was talking to me about, I guess she's not a girl, she's an adult. We all are, but whatever. She's a second grade teacher and she's great. And she's like, yeah, all of my students have chewies.
Mm,
Do you know what, have you, I'm sure you've heard of
mhm.
this. I don't know what this is, but she was telling me about how all the kids like just chew all day on these plastic things. And they're like plastic or silicone. I'm sure some of them are silicone, but they're basically
Yeah.
just like plastic things that you chew on. And I'm like, that
Mhm.
cannot be good. And I get if you have like a disability or you need
Yeah.
it for some sort of stimulation, like
Mhm.
100%,
Yeah.
but there has got to be a better way than chewing on plastic all day.
So there are silicone ones, and those are always the ones that I slash my OT coworker, co-founder of BabyFit recommends. But yeah, usually for kids on the spectrum or kids with like Down syndrome that have like some sort of oral, like where they chew on their like sleeve of their shirt or chew on their hair, it's like a different method for that. But that is pretty, does she work in like a special education classroom or?
She has a couple kids who have special education needs and kind of IEPs and things like that, but
Mhm.
most of her kids are not special needs, I
Just
believe.
typical developing. Interesting.
Yes.
I don't know. I know a
Yep.
lot of kids, especially now, need something to fidget with too.
Hmm.
And so that's one thing in classrooms that are huge is
There's,
like foot support
yeah.
and offering like
Yes.
foot support or something that they can fidget with their feet, like tying a TheraBand
Mm-hmm.
around their chair so that they can like bounce a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
get that stimulation. But the Chewies is pretty interesting. I'll have to ask Sydney if she knows anything about that, like with
Yeah. Let me know.
specifically developing kids.
I think just like one kid had it, and so then everyone wants it or whatever.
Gotcha.
But that makes sense. I mean, it's so uncomfortable to sit without your feet being supported, which I know you talk about a lot. But
Hmm.
um, also with the reason that this is relevant to fragrances and everything we're talking about today is that there is more and more research coming out about the fact that fragrances and plastics and all of these things are getting in our systems, causing inflammation, and are more and more related to developmental problems and ADHD and worsening autism on the spectrum and things like that, where it's, which I'm sure I'm saying parts of those wrong. I apologize in advance if I am saying that wrong or saying something that is insensitive, but um, there is research to show that there is more inflammation in children, which is triggering more and more of these things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And inflammation, even as adults, we don't really know. We can't even verbalize
Mm-mm.
that as adults that we're
No,
like experiencing inflammation in our bodies. So children especially don't know what that is and
totally.
may act that out in like things like
Yeah.
behaviors and stuff like that.
Totally. And I have a very personal experience with this where I have a diagnosis of ADHD, but I guess like ADD got taken out of the DSM or something
Diagnosis,
like
yeah.
that. And so I have ADHD, even though I don't have the hyperactivity part, but I couldn't read. Like I can read what it says, but I had to go to special classes for reading comprehension and whatever, because I literally could not figure out what was happening. But in second grade, in third grade and fourth grade, I thrived in reading. And then when we moved and I got more, like we moved to a very different place where people didn't care as much about plastics and scents and all of these things. And from fifth grade till my senior year of high school, I couldn't do homework. It took me 3 times as long to do my homework as it did in my sister when she was in the same grade as me. So that's when my mom started to notice, was like when my sister would get to fifth grade and would
Mm.
be like, oh, that was only taking your sister an hour, but it used to take you 3 or 4 hours to do your homework. Like something's not right. And so she finally took me to a psychiatrist down in Santa Barbara, like a children's one. And a couple of things happened. I was having really like bad stomach problems at the time, and that doctor was like, "Oh, um, you should do whatever and also stop eating gluten." And then my psychiatrist at the same time was like, stop eating gluten. And from the moment I stopped eating gluten, I also got on a medication, which I'm not on anymore, but not eating gluten helps with this so much because it is so inflammatory for me personally. And obviously this is not everyone's experience, but this really goes to show that your inflammatory cascade has to do with your ADHD because I can read now faster than I've ever read in my entire life before. And I think part of that is attributing to the fact that I just told myself I could, but also like that wasn't a placebo effect. I went through all of school never reading a textbook because I could not do it without either falling asleep or just getting so frustrated I would walk away. So,
Oh.
and that's just from like not eating gluten anymore because it does attach to parts of your brain and things like that. So I think it's just goes to show that these chemicals building up, which gluten isn't a chemical, like plenty of people can eat gluten just fine,
Yeah.
but these chemicals and other things building up in your system do affect the way that you can learn and pay attention and things like that.
Yeah,
So
because
yeah, it
hormones
matters.
affect everything, and
Hmm.
it's so functional, like you said, like it affects the way that you were able to read and learn, and even like, I mean, think if you wouldn't have figured that out, like your ability to build a business and like be successful and do the things that you
100%.
day, which is
Totally.
like it affects everything on like
Hmm.
concentration and yeah,
Hmm.
that is insane.
It's crazy. And
Um,
it's so invisible that you're like, oh, this kid can't read. Like, why is it taking so long to do their homework? Oh, you're going to a harder school or you're going into a difficult grade or whatever.
mhm,
But if it seems abnormal, like moms always know, if it seems
mhm.
abnormal, it's probably abnormal and it's something to get looked at.
Right.
Hmm.
Question, where were you living? Where where were you living and where did you move to?
So I was living in the Bay Area. I was born in San Francisco and we lived in kind of the Oakland Hills when I was little. And everyone cared about everything like that. And I was even talking to my mom about this yesterday because I was like, I won't do this and I won't do that. And she's like, when I was your age, I was super into all these things too. And then we moved to San Luis Obispo in 2005 and everyone thought I was crazy. So I just like kind of dropped it.
This is
And
crazy to me that
mhm.
people were thinking about this stuff in the 90s
My
and early.
mom has been anti-plastic literally since I was born. I have never had a plastic Tupperware in my house. Never.
That is what,
No.
like moving to Wisconsin, like how much of a culture shock was that for you?
Wisconsin was the craziest 2 years of my life, Rachel. It is so different. And if you've never moved to a different state that's
Yeah.
far from your state, I think if I moved from California to Oregon, like, yeah, it would be different, but it would still kind of be similar.
Yeah.
But California to New York is so different. I've lived in
Yes, sir.
California, Wisconsin, New York, Louisiana, Texas, Oregon, and Wyoming. I lived in 7 states. Every single one is so incredibly different. I can't even begin to tell you how different they are. It
Hmm.
is a wild world. And I lived in the biggest cities in all of those. So I lived in Portland, I lived in Austin, not the biggest, but some of the biggest.
Yeah.
Portland and Austin and New Orleans and New York City and Madison, San
Hmm.
Francisco, San Luis Obispo. I've lived in Santa Barbara, obviously Jackson Hole,
Jackson.
which is tiny, but
The most wild
um
city, that maybe.
yeah.
Remind me.
But yeah, it is all a very different situation, and everyone's views on all of these things are very different depending on where you live. So
Yeah,
interesting.
definitely. It is very interesting. I remember when I moved to Seattle and everybody was like composting everything and drinking celery juice. And I was like, where am I?
It's a real thing.
It's fun
So,
though.
but
Yeah.
if you are listening to this podcast and you're like, I live in Arkansas, or I live in New York, or I live in Maine, or I live in Montana, like it doesn't matter. There are resources for you to find these things and for you to be able to look. So I'm going to list kind of things to look out for, I guess, on the
Yeah.
back, which is just the words fragrance, parfum, parfum, which is like French for fragrance, I think, and then triclosan are the things we talked about today. Obviously, looking for phthalate free, we always recommend. Sulfate free, we always recommend, but those are kind of the big ones for today.
Yep. And I'll list this in the notes below.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's, I think, my favorite fact for today is that there are over 3 or 4 thousand chemicals that can be under parfum or fragrance, which we do not really have research on, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Or if we do, it's pretty negative.
Yeah. I think I love that fact. I think my favorite, and this is just kind of all inclusive, but is just how is about our hormone and our about our hormones and our endocrine system and how much like something so simple like a fragrance that just like smells good. Like there's no purpose really to it. Disrupt everything, all of your hormones, like everything in your day by one just simple thing and how many products it's in.
It's
So,
so wild.
yeah, it's crazy.
Well, thank you so much for listening today. We will see you next week, same time, same place. Leave us a review if you liked this episode wherever you listen to your podcast, and we will see you next week.
We'll see you
Bye.
next week. Bye.